this episode really hits the target. You're in the Playhouse. Welcome to the Playhouse. I'm Uncle Paul, and it's time for our very special hellos. Hello to Mr. Beatles Pro, the Sticker Mania family, and that includes you, Travis, Dave Sundstrom, Jerome Luby, Kid O'Toole, Beetle Dave, Joe Mayo, the Two Legs Podcast, Andy and Tom, Gracie and Rosie, Wink 55, also known as Maverick, John's Vinyl Records Plus, Sonny Pleasantone, Mike Malik, Mikey Arugula, Matthew Street, and Nicole, or Nikki. Now, if you'd like a special hello, or you'd like to dedicate a special hello, please leave it in the comments below, and we'll say hello in a future episode. And that's our very special hellos for today. And while you're leaving us a comment, by the way, please remember to subscribe, comment, and like to the Playhouse as we try and continue to grow the Playhouse. And we're very thankful for everyone who watches. And now it's time to dip into the record case. I love that. Now, in a previous episode, we've delved into the original Beatles orange and yellow Capitol swirls. Just like this is how the original Beatle records, of course, were released up until in 1968 in America, until the Apple label started with Hey Jude. Now, as many collectors know, Beatle 45's and essentially all of the Beatles catalog has been reissued over and over and over again. And not necessarily, I'm not talking about the collector reissues. I'm just talking about the way you would just get the standard Beatles catalog of their albums and 45's, since the music has always been available since 1964 here in America. So over time, Capitol Records, who is the distributor for the records in America, would change the label. So we're going to talk about a unique part of Capitol Records history that started with, once they abandoned the classic orange and yellow swirl that we just showed you, that in June of 1969, Capitol debuted what became known, I guess in the collector circles, as the Target label. Now, these were only used for 2 years, and there's a lot of variations. So again, these go from June of 1969 through the spring of 1971. And we're going to show you, what there's a term called a deep dive, which the Playhouse doesn't use very often. But for this one, we realized it really is true. We're going to do a big, deep dive into Capitol Target labels. But don't click off. I'm sure you'll be joining us. Because I said, in our previous episode, when we were doing the Beatle 45 picture sleeves, a lot of Playhouse members really liked that episode. So we're going to first, this was pretty much the universal sleeve that was used. Because don't forget, they weren't putting out picture sleeves at that point. The picture sleeves were only put out originally in 1964. So this is, by the time, meaning, explain it better, that if you walked into your local record store and wanted to buy a Beatle 45 that perhaps came out previously in 65 or 67, and now it's 1969, they updated, that would be a great word to use, the records. So yes, these records were all available on the orange and yellow swirl. Again, up to Hey Jude, as all Playhouse members know, in 1968, when Apple Records, the Beatles company, then they became Universal. But the records previous to Hey Jude were still being available, not on Apple. Now, eventually they will be on Apple, and that will be another future Playhouse episode where you could get all these on the Apple label, as we just talked about. The Beatle records were put out over and over again, as they should have been, because they were depleted. So you could just buy a regular 45 all the time. Now, this is the first variation of the Target label. And sometimes, by the way, these sleeves get mixed up, and we'll talk about other variations. But this yellow and blue sleeve is the original way in 1969 through 1971 how these 45s were put out. And by the way, they do have the printed in USA little stamp right here in the corner as well. Now, there were two versions of this particular one. Now, under the L in capital, there's a little R. Now, these would be for real completists. You need to try and collect all of them, which even the Playhouse doesn't have, of the different variations. But it's just fun to talk about what's available to collect. And again, these records were not available for a very long time. These are only on store shelves for a little over 2 years, again, between 69 and 71. That's why these are very collectible in the record vinyl world. So they got a little R here, registered, and take note of this Capitol logo, because this is representing, see, this is why they call it the Target. And we're going to get into this little circle as we look at the future records here. But this resembles a C in capital. That's why this is like that. To me, it also looks like a little turntable when you really look at it that much. So you got the R here, and this is the same type of thing. We're just showing you. The R is also here in this version. And then as they moved on, in early 1971, just before these were going to go away, Capitol Records thought or realized that the C that we were just showing you, okay, that it wasn't printing very well on the record. So they changed it to a white dot, or Target, Bullseye. See, now we're going to show them side by side. See, now this is how it first came out, with the little circle in the middle against the red part of the label. Well, then again, for some reason, they didn't think that that was printing very well. So then they decided to make that little Target Bullseye white, so it stands out a bit. Now, these are all, again, registered. I like to go all over the place, but also remember, I told you these were the original sleeves, so I'd love to point out original pricing also. Look, 69 cents for a paperback writer in 69, 1970. These were 71s. All right, and then same thing. These are all the white dot capitals, and these are all with the R registered under the L in capital. Now we want to say that, see, we talked about TM. Now, for some reason, maybe Mr. Beatles Pro can shed some light on this, because we just know about the collecting. But now, on these, which came out at the same time, this is the same, but there's a TM next to the L in capital that stood for trademark. So all of these Target 45s have the TM next to the L in capital. Just a fun variation. But there's another term. Imagine going down that rabbit hole in the vinyl collecting world of, oh, I must have all the Target labels, TM versions, and the R versions. And then, of course, to be a real completist, you didn't have to have the different variations with the white dot and the red dot. Oh, that's a large rabbit hole. Bugs Bunny would definitely be in that rabbit hole. I'll show you now. On these, okay. Now these, to me, as far as I know, are the rarest of the variations. Now, this is what they sometimes know. These came after January 1971. Same configuration, but the C is gone in Capitol. Now, I've only located pretty much all trademark ones, but this is what we're talking about this time around. Here, we'll take it out of its sleeve to really show you well. See how there's no C. And again, as far as I've learned in the collecting world and going out on shows, this is called the Bullseye label. Talking again about the Target label, okay, but this is, since there's just a circle, it kind of resembles a bullseye. So in the collecting world, people refer to this as the Target Bullseye label. So if you run across one of these with no C or in the circle there for Capitol, there's mainly a lot of dealers or vendors, they don't realize that type of stuff. You can get these rather cheaply, but these are the rarest version. So if the Playhouse was going to suggest, if you wanted to try and collect anything, you might want to just try and collect the Bullseye Target Capitol variation. And we have a few of them ourselves here. In fact, we have 2 Can't Buy Me Loves here. And again, fun price, 79 cents for this single back then. Now, before we delve into just later issues, now remember, after this came the Apple label, when all the Beatle records were pressed on the Apple record label. Again, we're going to save that for another episode. We just wanted to show you a few other ways that the Target label was used. Now, these are reel-to-reel tapes. These were very popular in the period. Remember, we said that the Target label was used between 1969 and 1971. I'm going to open this up. This is a lost art format, but they were very popular back then. The reel-to-reel tape, and you could buy an album, the entire, here's Rubber Soul. But just since this was the period that they were very popular when they came out, I wanted to point out that the Target label is right up here for Rubber Soul, and it's on the spine of the box. You see, it's a 4-track tape. And, I know Frank, again, Mr. Stickermania, he collects, he loves these. And just here's a Sgt. Pepper one as well, and it's the same Capitol Target label. And I'll just show you this one real fast, because again, sometimes maybe Playhouse members haven't seen these this way, because these are also, you can find these on what they call the secondary market or even at garage sales, but they're getting very hard to come by. Okay, so we'll talk about the orange Capitol 45's. Now, these were issued from January 1976 through March of 1978. Again, only 2 years. And this side here. And this is what came after the Apple Records pressings. And they came in this sleeve. Luckily, there aren't any variations like the Target label, but we just thought we would show you a few of these. Again, by this time, there were no Capitol Records, Apple Records being issued. And then from 81 to 1986, the blue and other colors Starline label happened. So here's just a quick look at what the Capitol Starline label looked like. And then, of course, in 1986, they reverted back to the classic early 60s rainbow label for the 45's. And this is a lot to collect to be a completist. But these were kind of fun and vintage because, we're used to this label originally only being used on the LPs. And they call this the rainbow label for, of course, obvious reasons. We're used to seeing that on the LPs. And speaking of the LPs again, we're going to show you now some variations now that we showed you the orange 45's. Now, of course, most copies of Abbey Road that are found, since it was originally pressed on the Apple label, but after records were no longer being pressed on Apple for a while in the late 70s, yes, they did start putting them on the orange label. So here's, of course, Abbey Road. And it's funny, Her Majesty is still missing here, but it's on the label. And this is the original album, which when I was preparing this, I did want to bring up a totally fast, different side note, which is debated a lot in the community. So we just like to bring this up for fun, because it's something that people say, oh yeah, I've thought of that. Many people wonder who this woman is in the blue dress on the back of Abbey Road. Now, there are a few people that have actually, I think it was one, came out and said that they knew who she was. But if you really look into the history, this woman has never been identified. It has nothing to do with the Beatles. There are rumors that it's like Paul's ex-girlfriend, Jane Asher. There's tons of different conspiracy theories, as you may say, of who this woman is. She was just walked in the shot. As far as I know, she actually annoyed Ian McMillan. Why he used it, I don't know. But he was upset that she walked in the shot. And maybe it was John says, oh no, leave that. So anyway, the mystery of the woman in the blue dress remains. All right, I digress. Back to label collecting. We have another variation of Rubber Soul, how they were printed. Now, this one, back to the Target label, okay, and they used a green label here in America. Now, in Canada, sometimes they were on an orange label or for the Capitol Record Club, but no real Beatle records were released on the orange label in this format. Other artists were released with the orange label in this format, but not the Beatles. So you'll always find these issues on the green label. And what makes this also double interesting is there are variations of this label. Like this is the upper and lower case label of the green one. I told you this would be a deep, deep dive into seeing Bugs Bunny. Meaning you can also find this label where all the song titles are in caps. Right? And there's just a trademark on that. Now we have another example. Now I know I got this one Easter of 1972, which is exactly the period for the first time that I got Magical Mystery Tour. So of course it would be on the green Target label, and this is an upper and lower case one as well, just like Rubber Soul. We want to, before we go, and before we dip into the comments bowl, I definitely want to make a thank you to Perry Cox and Frank Daniels with a forward by my good friend, actually, Bruce Spicer. Even though the Playhouse is very well versed and knows a lot about deep, deep diving into Beatle records, this book is an absolute must for the type of information that we just gave you. So we definitely want to say thank you to Perry and Frank and Bruce for their incredible work. And you can still track this down, the price guide for the Beatles American Records. But it gives tremendous history into all the labels and the information that we just shared. So we didn't want to leave them out for helping out with the information that we gave you today in this episode. All right, it is time to check the comments bowl. There it is. this real fast. These are the comments that Playhouse members leave, and we really are doing this randomly. We'll just pick one out. This is regarding episode 11, Push Up on the Bottom. And member Christopher Cruz commented that he remembered Trouble and its short-lived spin-off Headache. And he had no idea why the latter game, Headache, didn't last very long. Well, I admit, Christopher, I don't remember the game Headache at all, so I'll look into that. But thank you, Christopher. And if you want to be in the comments bowl, it's simple enough. Just please leave us a comment. And while you're at it, if you're a new time viewer to the Playhouse, please don't forget to subscribe and like and share. So for now, the Playhouse is closed.
Thanks, Joe Friday.